see these doctors in different channels and groups saying the culture in my company is broken because people don't want to work anymore. And I find that to be so unfair and untrue because everybody needs to make a nominal wage. They just want to be respected and treated like they're valued when they get to work. They don't just want to be a cog in the wheel. When we make decisions as a company, whether it's bringing a new product in or a new software, or we change the way we do things, or we add a new product, it's important that we coach our people along the way on how we're going to utilize that and how it affects them. You can't just roll something out and say, this is what we're doing today, good luck with it, because you'll get 52 different variations of what you thought was going to happen with it.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Dental Truth Project. We are so excited to jump into it. But before we do that, we have our inaugural Ask Dallin segment. For longtime listeners of the podcast, we're used to the Ask Ken segment. Today, we're bringing in an Ask Dallin segment. So the question today is, why does my profitability change so much each month on my financial statements? This is interesting. We were just talking to Bonnie about this before the episode started. So the reason why is, in dentistry, it's very difficult to line up your revenue with your expenses. Just the business model of dentistry means that oftentimes you're being paid either before or after you're actually completing the work, or you're incurring expenses. So like you're buying supplies or paying for your employees before or after the period in which the work is being performed. So that means that some months are very revenue heavy and some months are very expense heavy, but it's difficult to get the two of them to line up, which is why your profitability often is going to look wrong. If we had more time, we could talk about accrual accounting and how that I can solve for it, but we won't bore you. We're going to get right into our episode today. So Bonnie, we are super thrilled to have you. Go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself for our listeners, and then jump straight into the truth that you think the industry needs to hear today.
Oh, wow. Okay. My name is Bonnie Thompson. I am currently the COO of Forest Family Dentistry. I've been in the field. This will be my 37th year. I started as a dental assistant in high school and have literally sat in every seat in a dental practice except for the dentist and the hygienist. So sterile tech, dental assistant, front desk, billing, all of it. So I have a broad knowledge of all of those different seats, but I also have a background and a degree in accounting. From where I get to sit now, I get to help the owner make decisions financially for the company, things that make sense, but also figure out the impact that it's going to have on every team member along the way.
He is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
It's rare that type of a dialogue can happen, and that the owner dentist is willing to listen to what you're thinking about and what you're trying to solve for. That sounds like a great partnership you've got there.
I'm very lucky as well. I have a really good doctor owner that, we think the same on a lot of things, and we both have our own, strengths and weaknesses, but we complement each other really well. And I think at the end of the day, we have the same goal in mind. So it makes this relationship seamless.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm a little biased here, but I'm of the opinion that when you're looking at a DSO or group practice, or however you want to phrase it, one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable person on the executive team of that group is the person who has experience being in the office, whether it's chairside or at the front desk. There's a level of empathy I think they bring to executive discussions and to large scale strategy that can be difficult to appreciate if you don't have that experience. So I echo what Ken says. I'm sure that you are a tremendous boon to your executive team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to let you lead the way here, Bonnie, and tell us what truth you think the dental industry needs to pause and pay attention to.
You know what? I'm going to piggyback off of just what we've been saying all along, and it is the ability to connect with the people on your team. It really is, because these are the people, the hands, the faces that are meeting the patients every single day. And at the end of the day, we're in business to treat patients and deliver healthcare. I think one of the biggest things happening in dentistry right now is the AI explosion. And I can't open my email or my LinkedIn without having probably 5 to 10 different vendors like shooting me messages about how their AI product is going to fix my company and all of my problems. And they don't even understand what my problems are. We know a majority of them. But I think at the end of the day, Ken and I, we joked before this started that we've been in the industry a little bit now. And I think for me, it's never losing sight of the people aspect that we have a responsibility to manage and lead. And we can use all the AI tech in the world to streamline things, but we're still going to need people to help people. And the biggest change with that comes where we're probably in a time where we have more generational differences. We have millennials and Gen X's and Gen Z's and boomers even still rolling in the same fields. And it's hard for these people to see the different learning styles or the different needs of the emotional state of these people.
You touched on something here that is near and dear to me, and that is the moment in dentistry where you stop making the people in your practice, not necessarily the patients, but the people in your practice, when you stop understanding that they're who you serve so that they can turn around and serve the patients, that's when everything starts to just fall out of whack and patient care suffers and there's turnover and the culture starts to erode. Have you seen some of these types of things in your illustrious career, Bonnie?
So much so. And, I see these doctors in different channels and groups saying the culture in my company is broken because people don't want to work anymore. And I find that to be so unfair and untrue because everybody needs to make a nominal wage. They just want to be respected and treated like they're valued when they get to work. They don't just want to be a cog in the wheel. And gone is the days where, people of my grandparents' generation, they just took jobs and they would get tenured in and they would stay wherever they were for the rest of their career. It's different now. People want to feel like they bring value. And as I mentioned, when we make decisions as a company, whether it's bringing a new product in or a new software, or we change the way we do things or we add a new product, it's important that we coach our people along the way on how we're going to utilize that and how it affects them. You can't just roll something out and say, this is what we're doing today. Good luck with it, because you'll get 52 different variations of what you thought was going to happen with it.
Yeah. So I'm super curious, and there's so much to unpack here.
Oh, there really is.
I am curious what you've done tactically to help solve for some of these things at Forest Family. Because we've talked about some change management problems with if you're rolling out a new software, a new process. There's a human element to that of, it can't just be that the software has the right capabilities, but people have to adopt it. We've also talked about generational differences. Being a manager to a millennial is very different to being a manager to Gen Z, which is very different to being a manager to Gen X. So what have you done tactically as the COO for Forest Family to help accommodate for this?
I make sure, as I mentioned, I understand the lingo and I understand everybody's functionality on the team. So I know that when we roll out a change, the way we're going to talk to the doctors about what this change looks like and how it affects them and how it can benefit them is going to feel very different than it is the person that's answering the telephone. They need to know how they fit into what success looks like for this rollout and then how it's going to impact them. The dental assistant that brings the patient back, the one that's cleaning up the room, how quickly do we turn things over? You have to tailor the conversation to each one of those people different to what their needs are. And again, the learning style is completely different. That is like even more granular. But being able to let everybody on the team know how they fit into the life cycle of this new process is so important because their version of success and ours has to be aligned. So clarity is so key. And then they need to understand what they do, how that impacts the next person, how the dental assistant seats the patient affects how quickly the doctor can get in and get those consent forms signed or answer questions, get them numb, move on to the next thing. And they need to know what our expectations are. And we need to ask them, do you still have questions? Is this clear to you? That is very, very important, is letting them have that safe space to ask questions and not feel stupid like they didn't understand it the first time.
Bonnie, I'm sitting here thinking about this and all of those touch points that you have. It really requires, anytime you're going to make a change like that, you really need to organize it as a project, right?
Right.
Where you think about all of these different things and who the stakeholders are and how people's day-to-day job or maybe minute-to-minute job might change as a result of what's happening. And so could you maybe walk us through how you think about project management when you're rolling out something inside of your org?
A lot of times we've done it wrong. Don't get me wrong. And I've done it wrong in different ways in my career. I would say more recently, there was the less than awesome rollout of Curadont in our office. So I can kind of walk you through the trajectory and how we've learned to pivot. So doctor goes off to a CE. We learn all about this Curadont. The CE course tells you just fill out this code or these series of codes. It will be great. So they come in and they just blast it to the whole company. We'll start doing this. I ordered some. It will be shipped to your office and end of story. Well, now the team is like, we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to talk about it. Is this really the right ADA code? Wait, we don't have a cost for this. Wait, our different networks are saying it's a different fee schedule for this. So we realized all the different ways we could break a rollout to new information. So we've learned to pause, like what impacts is this going to have on revenue cycle? What is this going to have on billing? And so we try to pull in different leaders when we do things, even if we change the goal for different metrics in the company. I've now started asking my managers like, hey, we're thinking of making this change. This change right here on how we bonus people off of whatever metric it is going to impact your P&L this way. It's going to affect your profitability. We need to change it because we realized we broke it the first time and we just threw $1 at it. And then we realized that it wasn't tied to the outcome or the spend for different things. So we're trying to ask more questions of each level, like how is this going to work for you? And we have lead dental assistants, we have office managers. The office managers will check with the patient care coordinators. The lead dental assistants will kind of trickle it down, and then we'll have provider meetings as well.
That's amazing. And clearly you've developed this out over time, right? As it's a trial and error through the process. But the thing that I like the most about what you said is you're starting to get some of the lower level leaders and maybe even some of the higher level leaders, but you're getting them into the conversation early and saying, okay, what problems do you see with this? Because you're not going to be able to diagnose all of them, nor would anybody else in the practice, right?
And we've learned, again, I like to refer to it as failing forward. Sometimes you try something and it doesn't work. As long as you're open to accept responsibility, like, hey, we could have done this better, let's talk about it. I've also realized that if you ask too many people too many questions, you're going to have a lot of noise. So we try to keep the avenue of conversation to the lead positions, get their feedback and let it kind of temper before we do things. And we're still learning. Believe me, we are still evolving in our leadership style.
Well, we're very grateful that you are sharing this learning with us and all of our listeners here on the Dental Truth Project. Because that's the ultimate goal of what we're doing here is everyone's kind of trying things in their own spheres. They're failing in their own ways, in their own spheres. They're learning some hard lessons. And to have a community where we can come together and share the lessons that we've learned along the way so that hopefully the next organization that comes along tries to lead with a little bit more empathy, as you've been talking about, tries to think about every link in the chain in their organization. And if we change something up here, how is that going to roll out and how is that going to impact people? Hopefully the end result of this podcast is someone listens and says, oh, maybe I need to think about the ripple effects of my decisions. Maybe I need to think about how humans are going to be impacted by the change that we're making in our organization. And then they actually go and do something about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you think about all the conversation happening in the field for so long now about turnover, nobody wants to work in turnover. But when I hear people say, well, the company just made all of these decisions and nobody cared about us. If you have that mentality in your practice or in your company, and you roll things out and nobody's trained and nobody likes it and you have no buy-in and they all keep turning over, you're just training the same thing over and over again. And it's exhausting. And then it becomes their problem, not an us problem. And I like to press pause. And when I see something going wrong, I want to accept responsibility as a leader first and say, could I have done this better? Could I have trained better? Could I have offered more opportunities? Or if I can say I've done everything that I could possibly do, maybe it's just not a good fit, or maybe we really just rolled out something that isn't sustainable. But I want to own the level of we brought this in here. Was this the right thing?
Yeah. It's so critical to do that as the leader because, well, some leaders think that they just always have to be right.
Right.
And in reality, the leaders who admit defeat, who admit fault and own it, build far greater trust and just a far better culture within the organization when they know, wait a minute, Bonnie's actually speaking straight with us here. She's not sugarcoating this. She's owning this. People like to follow leaders like that.
It's helpful. I mean, it's been helpful for me to watch people learn and accept responsibility. And you can do it graciously. I mean, being a parent, especially a parent of adult children, has definitely taught me to be very humble that I'm not always right. And maybe the fears or the stress that I had about saying yes or no to something, even for my children, wasn't validated in any real evidence. It was just based on a feeling that I had. So I try to take all of those parenting lessons I've learned and been taught by my children into the workplace too, because, ultimately it's very similar. There's a parallel there.
I think the reason why I love this conversation is because many of the subjects that we talk about here on the podcast, the truths that our guests share, they're not generally known or generally understood, almost out of ignorance. Like people have just never had the opportunity to learn them. I feel like this is a truth that is staring most people right in the face, but they can't see it because of, like Ken was saying, ego. You want to think that you're right. Leaders often want the ability to just make a change in their organization and roll it out and not have to worry about the actual implementation. They're thinking entirely about themselves and not about others. And this is a truth that you have to set your ego aside in order to listen to. And in order to learn, you have to accept this idea that other people are impacted by your actions. That as much as we wish that one AI software, we could just roll it out and replace half of the employees in our organizations are made up of people that are complicated, that have their own emotions, their own experiences, their own hopes, their own dreams. And as much as many leaders wish that they could just pick a line item in their P&L, invest in it, and not have to worry about this again, the only solution to the problem is empathy. Recognizing that other people are human beings, that their experiences are real, valid, and you have to consider them when you're making decisions. No amount of money is going to fix that. It takes the leader being willing to set aside ego and learn empathy.
It is. And I will also add one thing I, as a younger employee, would sometimes look at was that it must always be the ego. The ego must always be the problem. And as I'm growing and becoming closer to leaders and having some of these discussions, I'm realizing that sometimes it's not their true ego, but it's their insecurity to not look like they're in control. So they see that they're wrong or they see that they've made a mistake, but their insecurity of being vulnerable to learn to pivot from that rests more in their insecurity and needing to feel like they're supposed to have an ego versus whether or not they're truly bad per se.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. Well, I think our conversation is wrapping up. Bonnie, do you have any concluding thoughts? If someone is interested in implementing what we've talked about today, maybe what's the first place they could start?
There's a lot of incredible books out there. Bring Your Human to Work is one of them that is fantastic. How to Be a Great Boss is another one. Being able to let go of some responsibilities and delegate some things to free up your space to do the things that you're really good at and allowing other people to fill in the gaps where you're maybe weaker. And honestly, I'm happy to connect and talk with people through things as well. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have side conversations and just kind of help people identify what their biggest challenge actually is so that they can get to solutions.
Well, that's a very, very generous offer for any of our listens. Bonnie herself is willing to have a side conversation with you about managing people issues in your organization.
I want to be first.
Okay.
I want to be second.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Bonnie, for joining us for the Dental Truth Project today. We hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. And again, if you want to reach out to Bonnie, she mentioned that the best way to contact her is her LinkedIn. And that's it for today's episode.